I was at the launch of the Reset 2027, and this event was attended by people such as Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, past leaders, Gerakan, and other PN component parties. Now, the MIPP president, Mr. Punithan, said Reset 2027 acted as a framework for MIPP's initiative aimed at strengthening the Indian community, particularly by resetting educational, social, and economic transformations for the community. Now, he went on to say that MIPP will then now proceed to mobilize its party machinery to engage with the Indian community to gather detailed feedback so that the Reset 2027 agenda is not merely a self-serving initiative but serves the community as a whole. Now, my question in this is, of course, and I think many people at the event were asking this similar question, was what exactly was Reset 2027? Well, again, as Mr. Punithan pointed out, it is a transformative agenda for the Indian community. This entire initiative will be based on the feedback that MIPP receives from the Indian community. Now, as a member of the Malaysian-Indian community, I feel that this is my opportunity now to share my views on what exactly I hope that Reset 2027 encompasses so that it really transforms the community and isn't just a play of words or a political promise that eventually dies out when the time comes. Now, in my opinion, what we need as a community is independence. We need to be an independent community that can sustain ourselves in the face of growing racial-based politics, identity politics that's taking place in this country. Now, Punithan has given a commitment that Reset 2027 will culminate in the year 2057, a 30-year plan that transforms the Malaysian-Indian community. Now, of course, after hearing this, I reactivated my gym membership because I would like to be alive to see how this reset actually turns out. At that event, Mr. Punithan did point out that in discussion with other Perikatan leaders such as Tan Sri Muhyiddin, he took their advice of creating a long-term plan because according to him, the Perikatan National Bloc felt that a long-term plan will be the only answer to solve the issues that plague the Malaysian-Indian community. And I do agree. This reset agenda should answer key problems. What I do disagree with Mr. Punithan is that the approach of getting the feedback of individuals or Indian NGOs or smaller entities within the Indian community isn't the right way to go. Now, let me give you an example of what happened at that event. So here I was seated at the table, and while Mr. Punithan was speaking on stage, he of course brought up, as a politician would, the labeling of temples as kuil haram. Now, when he was saying this, another person at that very same table turned to me and said, "This is the issue." Basically, what he meant was this was the issue that we needed to talk about. Being two people, Indians, at the same table, I disagreed with him. I'm not saying that labeling a temple as kuil haram is something that we need to forget or sweep under the carpet. It is something that needs to be addressed. However, the degree of importance that we put on such a thing does not compare, in my opinion, to issues such as growing the Malaysian business circle, creating new markets for Malaysian-Indian businesses to export to, assisting to develop Indian businesses in Malaysia that become economic multipliers, assisting Indian businesses to become sustainable job providers for Indians in the community, ensuring that there is a higher representation of Malaysian-Indians in the civil structure. These to me are just some of the issues that I put a greater importance because they have a greater transformative impact on the Malaysian-Indians for generations to come, as opposed to focusing solely on kuil haram issue. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. Dato Sri Najib Razak promised the Indian community in 2008 that the Indians will be represented in civil service to the tune of 7.4%, from an estimated 2 to 4% in 2007. Now, what this means is that out of the entire civil service, 7.4% of them will be Malaysian Indians. Fantastic. But however, as of 31st December 2024, Malaysian Indians only 3.7% of the country's civil service workforce, excluding personnel from the police and the armed forces. Now, this figure reflects a slight decrease from previous years. For instance, in March of 2023, Indian representation stood at 4.11%. although these are just percentages and these are just numbers, right? To paint the right picture, let's assume Perikatan Nasional or the unity government, whoever, decide that today they are going to fulfill that promise made by Datuk Seri Najib in 2008 to increase the participation of Malaysian Indians in civil service to 7.4% from the current 3.7%. What does that really mean? Now, it means that more than 48,000 jobs will be created for Malaysian Indians only. Now, what does this mean? 48,000 jobs created translates to about 2% of the entire Malaysian Indian community population in Malaysia, which is fantastic. In economic terms, 2% is a big number, particularly when you're talking about a country. Now, let's go deeper. 48,000 jobs of 48,000 Malaysian Indians serving in the government means that there are 48,000 Indians who will have stable income. In totality, that means that there will be over 96,000 Malaysian Indians who have stable income. 96,000 Indians, assuming that all of them get married, means that 96,000 families will be built on stable income. At the very least, they will be middle income families, which contributes to our M40 bracket as well as our T20. Now, as we go on and we multiply those numbers, that means that by years to come, we will see a significant impact on the Malaysian-Indian community. Now, this is why I say these issues must be focused on, and I hope Reset 2027 considers all of this and creates a blueprint that truly transforms the country. We have seen examples with Mitra, whose one of their promises was to transform. However, in recent years, we have seen all they are doing is nothing more than charity programs. Indians don't need charity, and charity does not really teach you how to fish. What we want is an approach that teaches you how to fish instead of giving you one and then keeping you hooked on their handouts, the crumbs from the dinner table, right? I agree with my previous guest from Parti Keadilan Rakyat who came on the podcast, Mr. Jonathan Vela, who pointed out that financial security must be the key focus. And I truly agree. Financial security means that eventually you'll see more social mobility within the Indian hierarchy. You will see more disposable income, which means that we as an economic power become far greater than what we are today because we are able to contribute back to the economy. And thus we will be taken more seriously. But back to what my suggestion to Mr. Punithan at MIPP. The first thing is you have to focus on business. Now, why I say that is because currently 90% of Malaysian Indian businesses still operate as micro businesses. When it comes to large enterprises, Indians only hold a share of 1 to 1.5%. That is nothing. And I could be wrong in this, but those were similar numbers that the Malays were holding during the time of Tun Abdul Razak, which then prodded the formation of the new economic policy, which then resulted in a development of a middle class for the Malays and gave them opportunity to rise. Reset 27 should focus on businesses by, number one, having clear and precise targets on what exactly they want to do. It cannot be like what is being done now, which we just operate by giving out loans or grants to Indian businesses. We need to have a clear plan and clear targets of what we want to achieve. For instance, if I were in charge of running Reset 2027, I would say the idea is that we want X% of the SMEs in Malaysia within 10 years to be Malaysian Indian SMEs. We want to elevate the current pool of micro businesses within the Indian community to the SME sector. We want to expand Indian businesses in Malaysia to look at export opportunities outside of Malaysia, providing them new markets for them to export to. This is done very well within the Chinese community. I give you one very simple example. If you go to Petaling Jaya, there is a durian shop called Durian Man. Now, please stay with me here. And when I went there, I noticed that these guys, despite selling durians just there at Petaling Jaya, they also export to various countries. So this is how the Chinese businesses grow, because they don't just focus on the Malaysian market, they also expand when they have reached a certain level of revenue and profit. That is what Reset must do. Now, when we have more Indian businesses operating within the SME sector, we have more Indian individuals or entities having more equity in large businesses, what we are then creating are long-term sustainable job creators. That means they will be then able to hire Indians and thus grow the stability of the community, as well as contributing to the increase in the household incomes within the community. If you look at what I said about Tan Sri Muhyiddin's statements, if you heard what I said about Perikatan statements, you will notice that the trend of Malaysian politics is going towards identity politics. And this is not something that I'm too upset about, because generally we must understand that the large voter base in Malaysia are the Malays. So generally there are many political parties now, Malay political parties especially, vying to be more Malay to get the vote and get into power. With all this happening, we must create an independence around the community so that we are not affected or we are insulated from such politics. What we are doing now is not right, because if we are going to always rely on a coalition to give us something, that will not work. Because of all the prime ministers we've had from independence, one could argue that Datuk Sri Najib was the only one who did things for the Indian community in the manner that he did. But that was just one out of the many that we've had. So we cannot put all of our eggs in that basket. Instead, we should now focus on us and focus on creating an insulation around the community, and within us, promoting business growth and providing opportunities for businesses within the Indian community. The primary focus of research should be independence. It should be making the Malaysian Indian community independent and self-sustaining.